If you've been struggling with focus, motivation, or that feeling of mental drag where you know what you need to do, but you can't seem to lock in, then this video is for you because focus isn't a personality flaw. It's not a willpower issue. It has to do with biology. Today, I want to walk you through how focus actually works in the brain. We're going to start with dopamine and hormones and explain what BDNF is, why it matters so much, and finally, talk about lifestyle, habits, supplements, and a few peptides that people ask me about all the time. This is education, science based, and meant to help you understand why your brain behaves the way it does. Let's start with dopamine because most focus issues are really a dopamine regulation issue. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter that drives motivation, task initiation, and sustained attention. When dopamine is low or poorly regulated, then our focus doesn't disappear completely, but it becomes unreliable. You might feel scattered, unmotivated, overwhelmed, or just stuck in that procrastination mode. So when dopamine signaling is stable, then we have better focus and it feels more effortless. We can start our tasks, stay engaged, and finish what we begin. And that's such a nice feeling, isn't it? So dopamine does not operate in isolation. It's heavily influenced by our hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. These all shape how dopamine functions in the brain. Estrogen in particular, it enhances dopamine signaling. It also increases BDNF, which we'll talk about in a minute. This is why a lot of women start to notice this drop in focus or word recall or mental sharpness during perimenopause when our estrogen levels become way more erratic or even start to decline. Progesterone plays a different role. It supports calm through GABA signaling and it helps regulate our sleep, which of course, sleep is super, super important for how our brain functions the next day. And when progesterone is low, then anxiety increases, our sleep quality drops. Focus can become harder to sustain because the brain is constantly overstimulated. Testosterone supports motivation and drive. We kind of know what this feels like, that reward processing, and it's in both men and women. It's a very abundant hormone in women. Some women think that they don't even have testosterone. You absolutely do. You absolutely need it. And it absolutely helps with that motivation, drive, and reward. So in women and men. When testosterone is low, you get this flat feeling, you're kind of indifferent, you're mentally sluggish, you just don't have that same get up and go, and your mood can even suffer. So when hormones are out of balance, dopamine definitely struggles. And when dopamine struggles, that's when we have the focus issues. So it's definitely all tied together. Now, let's talk about a second major piece of the puzzle, which is BDNF. BDNF stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and I like to describe it as fertilizer for your brain. So BDNF helps neurons grow, it helps them form those new connections, that neuroplasticity. It helps them repair after stress. It's essential for memory, cognitive function, learning, and long-term brain health. So you'll hear it talked about often in peptide space when we're talking about these brain peptides because a lot of them help with this. Low BDNF is associated with brain fog, burnout, depression, anxiety, and age-related cognitive decline. And the important part is that dopamine helps you engage with tasks in the moment, but BDNF determines how well your brain adapts and improves over time. So it's dopamine's that signal, and then BDNF is that structure that supports it. Now, before we talk about supplements or peptides, it's really important to understand that some of the most powerful ways to increase dopamine and BDNF are completely natural. So exercise is the strongest BDNF stimulator we know. Both resistance training and aerobic exercise, they both increase BDNF. So zone 2 cardio in particular. This supports hippocampal health, which is critical for our memory and learning. Cold exposure is another big one. So cold plunging or even just turning the shower on cold in the morning. This can significantly increase your dopamine levels. In some studies, more than twofold, and that can last for a couple hours. This is why you feel so amazing if you've ever done a cold plunge and you just get that high afterwards, like a really natural, good feeling. It's all about raising dopamine and without that crash or like the stimulant. So a lot of people like to take a cold plunge in the morning or before a task or, focused task. It really helps. And people describe better focus, better mood, better motivation for like the rest of the day. And then nutrition, of course, matters. So, diets that are rich in omega 3s, polyphenols, these are going to support our synaptic membranes, reduce neuroinflammation, which is huge for our brain support. And this is one of the reasons why the Mediterranean diet is basically associated with better cognitive health and better function. Once those foundations are in place, then supplements can add that next layer of support. L-theanine is probably my favorite. This is for calm focus. It reduces mental noise and it pairs really well with caffeine. So if you're sensitive to caffeine's jitteriness, you can take L-theanine. Kind of helps to like calm it or smooth it out. And it's actually part of tea. So this is why tea kind of gives you like a more calm feeling over coffee. But if you don't like tea, you can just take the L-theanine along with your coffee. It also helps you focus. And it also helps with sleep as well. So you can take it at night. It doesn't make you fall asleep if you take it during the day, but it does help it helps with both focus and with sleep. Teacrine is another useful tool. So this one supports motivation, mental drive without the tolerance or crash associated with stimulants. Magnesium L-threonate is unique because it actually crosses the blood-brain barrier. So it supports synaptic density and learning, and it's particularly helpful for people dealing with cognitive fatigue or age-related changes. And this is another one that can be taken in the morning or at night. And then there's methylene blue, which I absolutely love. So this, as very low doses, it can support mitochondrial function and ATP production, which is super important because neurons are incredibly energy hungry. So if your mitochondria aren't producing enough energy or ATP, then of course your focus is going to suffer no matter how good your dopamine signaling is. We need to have all these pieces of the puzzle in place. All right, now let's talk about peptides purely from an educational standpoint, but because I get asked about these all the time. One of the most well-studied peptides for focus is Cmax. Cmax increases BDNF and supports dopamine signaling in the prefrontal cortex. And what people notice with Cmax isn't like a stimulation, it's very gentle. It just improves clarity. It's often described as a clean mental energy, better focus, better motivation, improves stress resilience without a wired feeling. It's very gentle support. Then there's P21. This one works a little differently. It activates the BDNF track B pathway, which is more about long-term neuroplasticity and structural brain support. So Cmax tends to support performance in the moment. P21 is more about strengthening that learning, memory, cognitive resilience over time. Now, SS31 is another one. It doesn't work on the neurotransmitters, but it works on mitochondria. And then, of course, mitochondria, once we have improved mitochondria, we're going to have improved energy and our bodies, everything in our body is going to function better, essentially. So improving mitochondrial efficiency and ATP production is going to support your cognitive endurance, your mental energy, and especially in people who feel mentally exhausted. Like even if you're eating and sleeping well, I mean, the main things to fix are your hormones, your sleep, your nutrition, but this can add that extra layer of support for the mitochondria. Neuopept is another compound worth mentioning. It supports BDNF and NGF, that's neurotrophic growth factor, and it supports learning, memory consolidation, and a calm focus. Many people experience this as a subtle but reliable focus, especially when it's paired with those lifestyle foundations. It's going to be more of a gentle one. Finally, I want to address dihexa because this one requires a very clear safety conversation. So dihexa is extremely potent at promoting synaptogenesis, the formation of new neural connections. However, it activates pathways related to c-Met signaling, and this is involved in cell growth. Because of that, dihexa is not recommended for anyone with active cancer, cancer history, or genetic risk of cancer. This is not a casual compound. It's powerful, theoretical, and should be approached with extreme caution in research context. So when you think about improving focus, I want you to think about two layers. The foundation, so that's going to be our sleep, our movement, our hormone health, which we can absolutely not ignore if we want good brain function, our nutrition, and then maybe things like cold exposure, which can help boost dopamine signaling. You can add in supplements that support dopamine, BDNF, mitochondrial energy. So things like taurine that support dopamine and mitochondrial support through ALA, CoQ10, urolithin A, those types of things. And only then, if you're exploring advanced educational topics, you can understand how peptides fit into this bigger picture. Focus isn't about forcing productivity, it's about supporting your brain's biology. And that way, attention, motivation, and clarity are going to come naturally. So now you see all the tools that you can utilize to support this. Some are foundational lifestyle tools, and some are more advanced, like peptides or supplements. And if this was helpful, then like and subscribe. Check the links below if you want to work with me one on one or join my private longevity community.